Hey everyone, welcome to MAHA Moms podcast with Kristine and myself, Dr. Lisa Solsenti, where moms can come together and share how to navigate a toxic world with a healthy life. Our mission is to educate how we address childhood and adult health issues using homeopathy and functional medicine. And our discussions here will be information and educational purposes only. They are not meant to cure or treat any conditions. Or replace your medical healthcare professional care. So we want people to know that there are natural alternative solutions available. So hit subscribe and below, and also follow us on our social media as well. So let's get started. So today, hello, Kristine.
Hello.
Today we want to hear her story. Her story is a great story, as I said in our last podcast. And I think that a lot of people are going to relate to it. So I think what I love about this story is it's a dichotomy. I was talking to her before of my story and her story are very opposite, but we still come together and fight for the same cause. So I think that that's the beauty in it. And so this podcast is dedicated to her story. And again, we invite any of you to come on and tell us, so you could tell your story and we can share basically how functional medicine, healthy living can change your life, be ultimately life-changing. Right.
Yes, definitely. Hi, everybody. My story starts, well, I guess I'll start where Lisa left off and said how we parted ways. And I did go to college for teaching and changed my major to nursing. And I went through all the sciences and a couple nursing classes. And I gave my first injection to a friend's father. It was his insulin. And I literally got so freaked out. It just went in like butter. And I was like, whoa. Like, I didn't know that I was going to have to like stick stuff in people. So that's when I started to be like, wow, like, I don't think I could do this. Because then I started to think about catheters and like, oh,
Yeah.
and I was like, whoa, I think I wanted to be a candy striper. So I was working in a salon while I was going to school doing nails. And I was like, you know what? I love where I'm working. So let me just go back to school and be able to do more services. So I went back to school and I got my skincare license. So I was doing facials and makeup and waxing, and I still had my nail license. So I was doing manicures, pedicures, and I worked in the salon for 18 years. And I absolutely loved it. I love my coworkers. We were there together like a family the whole 18 years I was there. Um, but I would say halfway through it, I started to have some health issues that started with asthma. So we thought maybe it was the nail dust or whatever. So I had stopped doing certain services that involved that. And then I had my son when I was 33. So I developed high blood pressure towards the end of my pregnancy or at the middle. Um, and towards the end, it got to be a real problem, and they had taken me out of work early. And after I had him, which was a whole fiasco, which I'm not going to get into details now. We could get into that because we're going to talk about these topics, about like inductions and things like that, and where they lead. So anyway, I had my son, and I needed to get out of that hospital because I was having problems breastfeeding because they took him and they gave him a bottle, even though they knew I was breastfeeding. So then after that, now the latching is a problem. And my roommate was like the champion nurser. Like, and every time the nurses would come in, they'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe what a natural
It's
you
always like
are.
that. It's
Get
always
me
like
out of
that.
this hospital. Because that was the plan. So I had him on Wednesday night. I was out by Friday at noon, and I literally was Christmas shopping on Sunday with a C-section. So I got
Oh,
to like the farthest corner of Target, and I was like, maybe this wasn't the good idea, like that I pushed myself.
where'd you go? Yeah. No.
So I had him on December 16th. So I was like, well, I got a couple weeks. I got to get everything done. Or not even. I think it's like 9 days. So I really just hit the ground running after I had him, and he had colic and he had reflux, and um yeah, I felt so bad for him. He cried majority of the first 6 months of his life. Um
Aw.
and I literally couldn't function. Like, I was dragging because he didn't sleep, and he didn't sleep till he was 5. So I didn't sleep, and the lack of sleep, I literally was like losing my mind. I just couldn't function on such little sleep. And my husband was commuting hours a day, so it wasn't like he could help me at night. So anyway, we went on from there. I did end up going back to work when he was a couple years old, and I was in the salon and I was getting like these reactions where I would go into the facial room, I'd be in the middle of a massage and then I'm choking. And I'm like, why is this happening? So would run out of the room. Like that's like not the time that you want to run out of the room. The poor client, is like, what's up with this?
Laying there,
So I would like
going
be,
on face down.
yeah, I need an inhaler, I need a glass of water, I have to blow my nose. Like I had to like, get it to stop because it literally I couldn't stop it. Um, so that I was constantly clearing my throat. Um, I would come home from work at the end of the day and I would say to my husband, I can no longer remain upright. Like I would figure out dinner, take care of my son, and then I would have to go to bed. And I literally lay in bed and pray to God that I woke up the next morning. So I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. So I was going to doctors, and my first thing was that I was getting this squeezing in like my carotid artery. So I was at work, and one of the clients was a doctor, and he's like, listen, and my arms were going numb and tingly. He goes,
You're
I think that you need to go to the emergency room. And I was like, really? Like, after that. And he's like, no, you really need to go to the emergency room. So I went and they did like an ultrasound. They're like, you know what? It's okay, but we want you to follow up with your primary care. So the next week I did, and she was like, I think you need an antidepressant. And I was like, what? Like,
wow.
I'm not depressed. Like, I might be anxious, but I'm not depressed.
Right. Big difference between.
So but I was like, well, she's the doctor, and she literally was a friend because she came to the salon, so I knew her as that relationship also. So I was like, okay. So then she put me on Lexapro, and I was on that for about 4 years, and I was lost. Like it just numbs you to everything. Big mistake. Anyway, got off that. So it was like I kept looking for an answer. Like I would go to the allergist, and I would get like, oh, you're allergic to dust and mold, but they couldn't explain why I had a stridor. Um, it was just like one thing after another. And I would keep going because I'd get like a weird test back, but then they couldn't figure it out. And then I went to like the endocrinologist. Oh, you have PCOS. And I was like, how do I have PCOS? I don't have any of the testing. They've done the ultrasound. I have no like cysts. Like, oh, it's a diagnosis of a clinical diagnosis, I guess they said. And I was like, I don't know. So I just kept getting these things thrown at me, but none of it was the answer. So what happened was I ended up going for cancer risk assessment up at Hackensack Hospital. And when I was there, she said, whatever, we do need to do this testing, whatever. So she called me the next day and she said, I know you came for cancer risk assessment, but I need to tell you that I think that you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I think that you need to go to Baltimore. Now I live in New Jersey because that's the closest specialist. So I was
Like 3 hours, four
yeah.
hours, traffic.
So I was like, at least I could drive there. I mean, a
Right.
lot of people
Yeah.
just end up having to fly. Like it's really sad.
Yeah.
So I did go to her, and while I was waiting for my appointment, I ended up Googling allergic to water because I didn't mention that, but I've been allergic to water since I was a toddler. Like my mom would put me in the bath and I would itch until I bled for hours. Like she didn't know what to do, so she would just give me Tylenol to like calm my nerves or whatever she had said. Um, they gave me oatmeal baths, they gave me all this stuff, and it just never made sense because it would happen in the bath, it would happen in the pool, it would happen on a day that I'm inside in the air conditioning, but it's humid out, but I'm still itchy. Like nothing made sense. So I was like, what is this whole allergic to water thing? So when I looked it up, I found
Wait,
a
let's stop
forum.
there for a second. So when you're in like a pool,
Oh yeah,
a bath,
ocean,
ocean, I didn't know
rain,
this.
sweat,
So I didn't
sweat.
know this. So when you're in like water, ocean, bath, doesn't matter because ocean you might think salt, pool you might think chlorine, but you're just in a bath as a child and you're getting itchy, you're getting that,
Oh my God, it
get the
was
hives? You get like actual
no, nothing on my skin.
super itchy?
The dermatologist would be like, "Oh, it's eczema." And I was like, "But
Oh
my
yeah,
skin's clear. Like it doesn't look like anything."
dermatitis.
Yeah, and he
Love
took
that word.
a scraping and looked at it and he was like, "Oh, you have the skin of a 60-year-old." And I was like, I don't know, 15. So I
Oh
was
boy.
like, "Well, that's a little strange." So anyway, what came up was mast cell disorder. And in that forum, they mentioned mast cell disorder and Ehlers-Danlos. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm on the right track here because I have this appointment for the Ehlers-Danlos evaluation and all of that. So I went and she was the best doctor ever, Dr. Claire Francomano. She's
Claire
since
Frank and
moved to
Mono, Dr.
Indiana.
Claire.
I mean, she's probably one of the best Ehlers-Danlos doctors in the country. She does a ton. She's actually training a ton of medical professionals at, I think it's, I'm not sure, Indiana University or University of Indiana, one of those.
Can you, for our listeners, explain? I know you're going to get into your
Yeah.
how they saved you.
What are
Uh,
they?
but what is Eller Downers? What is mast cell?
Ehlers-Danlos is a connective tissue disorder, and it affects every organ system. So basically, what they told me was, if you are young, relatively young, I would say under 40, and you have issues in multiple organ systems, they say if you can't connect the issues, think connective tissue. So connective tissue is your entire body. All your organs are made of connective tissue, ligament, I mean,
Yep,
skin,
hair,
everything.
skin, nails,
Yeah.
ligament,
So
tendon,
what,
cartilage, my area,
yeah,
gut, the gut. Yep, all
so
your
the ligaments and the tendons are stretchy. So we bend backwards like farther than most people.
yeah.
Our
You said
ears are
that
soft
like
and squishy. Are your ears soft? Because I think I see
no,
it.
she thinks I have it. Where's my what's
Like,
squishy?
can you bend your ears like this?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, not everybody can.
really?
Nope. Yeah. So
No,
there's
my
a
finger.
lot of
She goes
signs.
like your thumbs.
Yeah, I can look at pictures. I can spot it a mile away.
I have a
Like,
really hard adjusting when I have to use my thumbs because my thumb just keeps going. So it's not,
yes,
it doesn't, see, it collapses. So like, it's not a very good
it doesn't have the,
hammer.
that's like when you press the buttons on like the
Yeah.
microwave or whatever, or I forget which one it was, the bread maker or something. I kept pressing and it wasn't registering my pressing. And I was like, oh wow, this is a really good way to tell if
Oh,
you have
that's
it.
me all the time. Uh-oh, here I am.
Yeah. So
But is
and
Eller, it's so the connective tissue in the body is inflamed or what's going on?
no, it is stretchy. It
Gotcha.
lacks the elastin. So
That
and
makes
they
sense.
also have stiff zebras, which I believe it's because your muscles start to clench to hold your bones in place because your ligaments and your tendons are too loose. Like that's why I have such terrible pain here because it just like seizes up.
Would it,
Um,
I know I'm getting off your story, but we're talking about Eller, mast cell. I want people to understand this, and I want to understand it a little bit better too, because we're seeing trends with my kids too. Um, the knees, do they kind of buckle in or?
Yes. Well, that's it. There's something called the Baton score where you get 2 points if you can bend your pinky back 90 degrees. If you can touch your thumb to your arm, that's another couple points. If you put your arm out and it like, you can't tell because I'm wearing black. Um, but like that's not normal. Your elbow is supposed to be more like this. So it like hyperextends past the normal point.
Yeah.
So for your elbows, same for your knees, they count as 2 points. And then if you can stand with your legs straight and palm the floor is another. Um, so I definitely passed that test. And then she just started to talk to me because like there's birth defects are common with it. Um, hernias, eye problems because I have astigmatism. I mean, you literally name it. I could go on and on. I pore scarring, cigarette paper scars, keloid scars.
Yeah.
Um, it affects
Don't
everything.
scar right. I
Yeah.
don't.
And I also believe that it predisposes you to um neurodiversity, ADHD, like all that stuff. Um, it just predisposes you, but then you like need the thing that pulls the trigger, and then, you know. then it's
Makes
on.
sense.
Yeah.
So is I can't say it.
Danlos,
Can't say
Danlos.
it. Yeah, it's Danlos syndrome. Danlos. Um, do most people with that have the POTS and the mast cell?
I would say
They all kind of
huge,
connected.
huge majority, but all of it is a spectrum, and even the people that are in the family, it's a spectrum. Like my sister and I are affected differently, my niece, my son, all of us are different, and all three are also a spectrum. So you don't present the same like as the other, like in the family, or I mean, just everybody's different because there's so many different ways that it can affect you. um
All right, back to your story because I cut you off. I just wanted people to know, like, what
yeah,
is
no, it's
this
good to know because
condition that you went to this doctor and found out you have?
she believes that 25% of the population is affected and a majority of the people do not know. And you know some people say that you're just looking for trouble if you just keep dig, because you could dig forever and literally find so
Okay.
many things. Like they
Yeah.
wanted me to go get they said I had cranial cervical instability. They wanted me to go get surgery, get my neck fused, like
Oh my
no.
goodness. Oh my.
But there are people that do it, and then they're sorry, but you could just keep going on and on forever with this because it's affecting your entire body. um so what was I saying? Yeah,
I
so
go. I took you off track. I
so yeah,
apologize.
she did confirm, because that what she does is like a 2 hour long DWI test where she's like measuring body parts and all that, but then you also have to like close your eyes, arms out, touch this, do this, stand on one foot, and she just takes all that information in. So she's like, yeah, she said, I believe you have POTS. I will definitely say you have mast cell disorder, and gave me a doctor to follow up with. So I followed up with that doctor. Um,
Is this where you
and
realized that you were having anaphylactic reactions your whole life to
yeah,
things?
I didn't know that's what it
You
was.
didn't know that
I
that was
knew
what's
I
going
was
on,
sick. I
correct?
felt like I was dying, but I didn't know like how severe it was. So what happened was the doctor that I needed to see for the mast cell disorder was in New York City. So we had gotten there early and I had to use the bathroom. We went to Bloomingdale's fragrance floor where the bathroom was. And now that's a huge trigger for me. So
Perfume,
oh
fragrances.
God, anything, any kind of fragrance or fumes. So I did that, went to her office. So I'm on fire when I get to her, and she's like, whoa. So my blood pressure's through the roof. My face is beet red. Um, I'm clearing my throat constantly. And she was like, how long have you been doing that for? Like, when you feel like you have a frog on your throat and you can't clear it. That was me all the time. They would make fun of me at work. It was always when I got to the nail polish part. They were like, Kristine, what is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
good thing I found out. So anyway, she's like, how long have you been doing that for? I'm like, for a while. She goes, that's not good. And I said, why? I thought it was a postnasal drip. She's like, no, that is throat swelling. So I was like, have you ever heard a reaction where like your voice gets froggy and then like your bladder leaks and you have no urge, like it just happens? And she goes, that's anaphylaxis. And I said, I've had it every day for 2 years. And she's like, oh boy. So she was trying to farm me out. She wanted me to go to Boston to Brigham Women's because there's a mast cell center there. Or then she was like, well, what about if you go to NIH down, back down there? And I was like, I'm lucky I got to New York City. Okay. So like you're stuck with me. I'm sorry, but here I am. So I had to go like every 2 weeks in the beginning because I was so unstable and my blood pressure was so crazy high. And she was the only one that knew what was wrong with me and that could help me. So that's what I did. And she said to me, I mean, because the second time I went to her, I couldn't get out of bed because my blood pressure laying flat was like 200 over 125 laying flat. So if
Wow.
I got up and started doing stuff, it went even higher. So I was waiting for my appointment. So when I finally got there, I was just crying. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And she's like, listen, she goes, do you believe in a higher power? And she like held my hands and I was like, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're going to get through this. I promise you. She's like, I'm going to help you, whatever. So she had like put me on a blood pressure medicine to like micromanage it so that I could really control it. But she goes, you need to go home and you need to throw out everything in your house, that has fragrance in it. You need to go to a, you know, low histamine, whole food, um, diet, nothing processed, because those fillers, those preservatives, those dyes, all those little guar gums and all that stuff, that is a
The
problem for me.
additives, the additives.
So I was like, what? Like at that time, I'm a working mom, I'm tired, all this. And I'm like going to Trader Joe's frozen aisle,
Yeah.
oh, we got the microwave rice, we got,
Which has a lot of junk in it, by the way. I know people think like,
yes,
oh, Trader Joe's, and I'm not mocking this company because they do, there are healthy things in there.
processed, really
But I
hasn't,
just want people, yeah, yeah, a lot of it's processed. Yeah. My
even
husband will be
natural
like, go
flavor.
there. And I'm like, it's not any better.
No, because there's so many names for yeast and all of that, MSG, and it's all kind of a very blurred line as to what those ingredients really are.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so I was thinking, like, I'm not gonna be able to eat anything out of a package. Like, sounds
I'm gonna
incredibly
eat.
hard.
What am I gonna do? It's my food.
But I was like, now that I knew that that was throat swelling, when it would happen, I'd be like, oh my God, like I have to cut out whatever just caused that. So I literally gave my entire spice rack to my neighbor. Um, there was times that I literally had to cook in my own kitchen with a mask on, the window open, and a fan, because the cooking oils would turn into like fumes. I mean, I was so sick. I can't believe how far I've come. But then I had to do like an elimination diet and go down to about 5 foods. And it made it so easy. So if there's anybody out there that is dealing with, you have a food intolerance and you're not sure what it is, the best thing to do is listen to your gut, because your gut does not fail you. And I have so many times that I wish that I would have listened to my gut and I didn't. Um, but hindsight's 2020. But if there's foods that that make you feel okay or good, follow that. So I just went to like organic chicken, um, white rice, celery, peeled apples, because even the peels can be a trigger, like
Oh,
for some people. Um, apples, butter, salt. I want to say that's probably maybe maple syrup and oats, organic oats. Um, just the thing. Oats are so high in glyphosate. If anyone is eating them, only get the organic kind or don't eat them at all. So I kind of just made a menu for a week with those like 5 things and just kind of like got creative. But once you do that, or like 5 days at least, maybe if you can get to 7, and then you start adding one food in, like if you're having a good day and no reactions, add one whole food in a day. And it's real apparent how fast things like scream out at you, like tomatoes. I was like, whoa, my chest was all broken out, my heart was pounding, my throat was sore, and I was like, wow, tomatoes, I guess, not on the list of ones that I can do. Which was,
say, like,
I'm still going out kicking.
your story is like you are that story that I use this metaphor, the little analogy is like you're a fish in a toxic fishbowl,
Yeah,
right? So you're having anaphylactic reactions and you don't even realize it. You just think you have a postnasal drip, but you're like practically near death's door. And you're like this fish in this bowl. So now you have to look at your entire environment
yeah.
of where are the toxins coming in. Because I talk about this, I teach about this all the time. It's what's going on with you is the toxic load
It was just
too much
unbearable.
for your body. That's
Yeah,
how much toxins that you take in. And the toxic load is like, look at the patient and how you got to look at every area, your skincare, your hair care, your foods, your
yeah,
drinks, like you said, your perfumes, your bathroom, your kitchen, like all of it, all the toxins that you're taking in is your toxic load, I guess you could say toxic load. So that's
yeah.
what it
Your
sounds like.
body
You just
burden.
were like this. Now you're at this part where do you start? And you started with your food.
Cold turkey. I had to do cold turkey.
Yeah, you
But
have
when I was
to.
doing facials, you absorb, I didn't know this, what you put on your skin absorbs into your bloodstream within 26 seconds. So think about all the facials I was doing, all the different layers of products all day long, just absorbing into my system. Nail polish remover, we were using pure acetone to get the polish off. I was pregnant, my poor son. We want to wonder why he had colic and reflux and all these things going on with him. He didn't stand a chance. Like, it's
What did the
really,
doctors say? Well, like, you guys, was he born with this? Were you born with this? What did she relate this to?
I think we were predisposed, but we were all definitely triggered by some kind of trauma, she says. There's the trauma that triggers it to the next level. Um, so she thank God I found her, but she did say it's your air, it's your food, it's your water, it's your products, it's everything. And she said, you're the canary in the coal mine. Everyone else is going to get there too. In another
Exactly.
15 years, it's going to be everybody. So I was
He's
like,
so right with that. That's such a good point that you guys should listen to, because we're going to go into the podcast, and this is going to, once we tell our stories, we're going to move into these topics. And our first topic is going to be the food dyes. We're going to start with those additives, but we're all living like Kristine was living, and it's eventually going to affect all of us, because our bodies can only handle so much toxic load. So a
yeah,
lot of
it's like
these
a
things are
bucket.
quiet too. Like, I have an autoimmune thyroid problem, but when I've done all my research on my thyroid, you have it 12 years before you actually find it.
Oh,
So yeah, a lot of these cancers, they're there for years and years, if not decades, before it appears. So it's that fish in the toxic bowl, right?
yeah, it really bothers me because I don't know many people that aren't affected by like their thyroid. I feel really lucky that that's probably the one thing so far, that I don't have to deal with. But what I see is like they're still using all their products and they're using Keurig K cups and they're using like, and all
Got
of that,
plugins
it
and
literally is a
candles.
bucket. It is just filling you up. And
Love that store. What's that store in the mall? The Bath and Body.
oh, I
Oh,
cannot go
I
within
can't
like
go in there.
200 feet of it. I
It's
honestly don't go to the mall because of it, because not just that, they pump in fake fragrance through the air system, and I literally go into like a cold sweat from it. It's disgusting.
yeah. I'm
So
super sensitive to stuff too, and I realized that.
yeah, that's can be not.
My mom and my sister make fun of me that if I'm in a certain store, I immediately have to go to the bathroom. Like,
Yes,
immediately.
yes, that is
And
the
I
classic.
run, I run and find I know the bathroom, and then I just don't go to these stores. I don't want to rip the stores apart, but I don't go to these, like, there's 4 specific stores that I don't go to anymore, because I'm gonna have to, and it's a rush.
Yes,
It's
it
like I
happened
start
to me
sweating,
too.
I'm not feel good, and I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's the smells of the plastics, it's the
Mhm.
smells of the perfumes.
Formaldehyde
I
is
can't
in
do
all
it
that
either.
crap.
So
Yeah.
she's diagnosing me.
Oh my God, I got it down to a science now.
How does that
Um,
bring us to your aha moment, right? Okay, trying to bring you back to your story, because I know
yeah. Wait, say that again.
I want to hear about how this brought you to your aha moment at the Trenton rally, that you were talking about last week.
Well, this all happened, I would say,
But your son got sick too, right?
yeah, that's where
That's
we're
before
going.
that.
Well, what happened was once I kind of got diagnosed in February, it was only a couple months later that my son went to Camp Woodward for like scooter week or whatever. It's like extreme sports camp.
Oh
And
yeah.
he had an accident and split his lip, and his teeth were embedded in his lip 17 stitches later, and his face blew up. And on the way home, I would say within three 3 hours, not even. It was probably within an hour. It took 3 hours to get home. He had a high fever, and he developed sores on his throat that were like the size of a nickel. He couldn't even swallow. He was like spitting into a cup. And so I was like, that's really weird. Like, how did he go to the emergency room? And all of a sudden now he's really sick with a fever an hour later. So I took him to the pediatrician and she's like, oh, she goes, it must just be like a virus. And I was like, don't you think that's awfully suspicious? And she said, well, I don't really know what else it could be, but that sore is really big in his throat. And I was like, yeah, because she's like, it's this big. So the next time I went to my immunologist in New York, I told her, and she's like, did they give him a tetanus shot? And I was like, yeah, they did. And she goes,
Uh,
I'm afraid that he has this too, and that's actually a reaction to that And I was like, what? Like,
So the sticks can cause, right, an anaphylactic
yes,
thing. Is
yes,
that what
yes, yes, yes,
yes?
yes.
Yes, yes,
Anyone.
yes, yes.
Not just the recent one that a lot of people are dealing with reactions from. It's
Yeah.
actually all of them that can trigger and be the trauma for this. So that was devastating. Like I can
Vicky.
handle myself, but to have him have to go through all this, like the two of us were in the trenches together for a good number of years. And I've seen him with a blood pressure of 59/40, a heart rate of 38. I've seen him white as a ghost. His lips were white. But what happened was, because it was so long ago, no one knew about mast cell disorder. Um, she was like, you need to be careful going to the emergency room because they're not going to believe you. They're going to just like try to give you something and it can actually hurt you and do more damage because they don't know what to look for or what are the triggers for mast cell disorder, like what medications or whatever. Um, so she said, if you do have to go, lie and say it's a peanut allergy. Say you have a peanut allergy. So that way they kind of like get a, gist of what to do. So she goes, I'm going to give you everything that you need to handle this at home so that we could just avoid that situation. Because where we live, we're not like the medical capital of the world. We're more like the retirement village, capital of the world where they're just treat them like cattle,
She's not wrong about that. We have
no, she
a lot of
knew.
boom.
She was like, "Woof," she felt bad about where I lived.
That's
Um, so we did that. There was nights I didn't know what to do. The PTSD is strong because when your kid's heart rate's 38, like, holy shit. So, thank God I had liquid albuterol, and I knew that albuterol gets your heart rate up.
right.
So, not that I'm telling anybody to do this, but I was desperate and those were the tools I had. And, I gave them a thing of water and a bag of potato chips because we needed the salt to get the blood volume up and the water, a combination of, and it worked. Thank you, God, it worked because I was terrified. It always seemed to happen like late at night. I don't know if anybody
Always
realizes
does. I
this,
think
but
things, yeah.
there's always a relation to late at night when you're can't, I
When
wish
you're dealing with your mast cell and now his mast cell,
it
and
was,
you're treating this medically, but trying to clean up the toxins in your life, right?
yeah. Oh
And
yeah. We totally were toxin free by that point because I took it to like the next level, but we were fully medicated. I was on 10 different medications. I was on Valium daily because what would happen was I couldn't EpiPen every day, especially with the blood pressure that high. So she said to me, take Benadryl, but add the Valium because the mast cells and the nerves are so closely, what do you want to call it, positioned, that if you calm one down, you calm the other down. So that's what we did. And it did work. Within 15 minutes, it stopped. So that was the deal. And I was taking it, I don't know, I was taking it probably twice a day for 10 years. That's why I'm like, I think I still have some damage done from all the drugs they put me on. And it wasn't her fault. That's how she got me stable. At that time, I don't know I don't know how we could have done it otherwise. So,
well,
I
that's
was
where I
going
think
through,
medicine is phenomenal, emergency care and stabilizing you,
yeah,
right? But the chronic part of trying to figure out what's causing things
yeah,
lack in that part, I think.
yeah.
So that's what I'm hearing from you. We have been talking half hour, so
Have we?
I think so.
Get out of here. Okay, I'll be back.
I think so. I didn't look at the exact number we
Oh, but I
started.
gotta tell my good part of it. So let's
Yeah, so
look
wrap
at
that up.
this. Okay.
Go to the good part.
So anyway.
'Cause- Yeah,
What
go
happened
for it.
was with COVID, because we have immune dysfunction, I kind of got a little bit like, I need to know what's going on because we have 0 pneumonia titers. And when I found out that his was directly related to that, I was watching Judy Mikovits and she had said that you can't poke the immune deficient because it pisses off the mast cells and makes them hyperactive. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, I'm immune
Yeah, and that's
deficient.
a hard concept for medical doctors to get.
Yeah, I was so glad
Really
she
is.
told me because then I could look back and I'm like, wait, they talked me into that flu and DTaP when I was pregnant. And then I was like,
Wait,
oh, wait
so you
a
got
minute.
2 sticks when you were pregnant.
Yeah. And I had a miscarriage and I was very nervous about everything. And my doctor was like, oh, but this is what we do. And
Don't
I was
have
like,
guilt. Yeah. Just,
my body said no, but I was
yeah.
like, but she's saying yes, and she knows how I'm, feeling and being nervous. And if that's what I'm supposed to do, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I did it. So then I was like, okay, wait a minute. So the same thing happened to both of us, really, honestly. If we want to pick out what the trauma was, I would assume that that would be more so if I'm immune deficient, and that's what they had just explained. So anyway, during COVID, they started to talk about supply chain issues, and well, now we can't get EpiPens, and now we can't get IV Benadryl, and now we can't get chromonol sodium. So I was like, wait a minute, like I'm not going down like this.
Like,
Get off these 10 medications because
I have all these
I
meds
go
and I can't get them.
off cold turkey. I'm done. So
And
anyway,
you went cold turkey?
what?
Wait,
I
did you just say
didn't.
you went cold?
No, but if the grid went down or something happened,
You would have. Okay.
I would have had to, and then it wouldn't have been a good ending. So I started to like wean off of a couple, but then I found out that there was in the medical freedom group that I met all these wonderful people. There was a nurse that has Ehlers-Danlos mast cell disorder and POTS, and she went to be a holistic nurse, and she also learned homeopathy, and she was raving about it. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll like take the class. And so when I did that, that really changed my life because it is, I don't want to say it's magic, but I've seen it do some pretty remarkable things. And I mean, you've seen the pictures of my dog's ear, like
Yes.
we avoided surgery with it. It's
Yeah.
so
Had a
unbelievable.
huge, what was it, cyst
It
or
was like a polyp.
type
I
polyp
mean,
thing
it was the
growing
size of
off?
a pencil eraser.
Yeah, this thing growing off his ear.
But when you cut those things out, they come back most of the time and they bring friends. So I wasn't rushing to that. And so I tried a couple different remedies, but then I got to the right one and it just started to like shrink and deflate and disappear. And I was like my dogs, they come running when they hear it now because they know that it makes them feel better. So the first thing I did was take Conium for my dizzy spells that would like land me in bed for weeks at a time because I was not able to drive because of the dizzy spells, and then it was just a whole culmination of things. So one dose of Conium and my dizzy spell stopped within 5 minutes. And I was like, wait a minute. So then it came back like 2 months later. I took one more dose of Conium and it went away in 5 minutes, and it's been gone for like 2 years. So that was remarkable. And then I had to, once I got over the dizzy spells, then I could start to drive again. But I would have some panic attacks because, when you're driving and you're dizzy, now all of a sudden you're having a panic attack. So you have to pull over, the whole bit. So I would line up the aconite, like, because I don't know if you've seen Helios tubes. There's these little tubes and they have a cap and you have to dispense them. So I would have them lined up in little caps around so that if I started to get like the panic attack, I would just shoot one back.
A little
Oh my God, it was in seconds.
seconds.
So it really, I couldn't not keep going because I saw so much success with it. So I just kept using different ones and peeling back the layers and weaning off my medication. And I would say it was not even a year that I was taking classes over and over and over, the Gateway to Homeopathy classes with Joette Calabrese. Um, it teaches you the whole idea of homeopathy, so that helped, and like all the little ins and outs and stuff, and how to use a materia medica and how to use a repertory. So it just gave me enough that I could like work on myself and my family and my pets. And she was talking about the academy, and I was like, ooh, I really want to go to that academy. But you only start once a year. It was in July, and I was just finishing Gateway, and I just didn't have enough time to like work it out. So she let me take the class over and over again for free that whole year, the same Gateway class. But I learned something new every time. I would just listen just to keep fresh and like learn new things. So then the next year I was able to go into the academy. So I started in July. I'll finish in July. I think we graduate in September because some people can like extend their final exam. But it's the best thing that ever happened to me because it changed my health and my family's health, but to be able to do it for other people and like then watch, like, because I have friends and I'm like, you got to take her class. You got to take her gateway class. I mean, if I'm spending 5 minutes with you, I'm telling you about
No,
homeopathy
she
because
is, because I want to take it.
really is so unbelievable. So my one friend that I told her about it, she took the class. Her husband was supposed to get surgery for intussusception, which is like your intestines like retracting into each other, like serious surgery. And she took the gateway class. She did her little repertorizing or whatever, and she came up with a remedy. Do you know he went from like a 10 on the pain scale to a 1 in like
Wow.
only a couple days. She
Amazing.
totally healed him of it. She just took a gateway class. It's not like she's a homeopath yet, but anything is possible because there's just so much information out there. If you just have to dig for it, you know. So, and it treats everything. Like I didn't realize that. I just thought, oh, arnica, oscillococcinum, there's like 6,000 remedies and they can even treat cancer. Like the Banerjees who I study under, they have a clinic in India that's 150 years old, and they're generations of MDs that are also homeopaths, and they just kept all the data. So they were able to come up with certain protocols for certain things because where they are in India is very lacking in medical care. And there's 12 doctors there and they each see 100 patients a day.
Wow.
So it's like a huge turnover. Um, but they don't have the time, like, because with classical homeopathy, they use practical homeopathy. Classical homeopathy, it's like 2 hours just taking an intake with people because it's very detailed into every aspect of their lives. Um, and they didn't have the time to do that. So they're like, okay, you have a diagnosis. This is the protocol. Come back in 6 weeks, whatever. Um, so it's just so fascinating to me. I love Joette. She's the one who went to India. She was a classical homeopath for like 30 years, I want to say, and went to India, and she got to go back year after year and just sit with them for like weeks and months at a time and just take everything in. And they loved her so much that they basically gifted all their information to her. And since then, um, the father and the son have passed on, and she's the holder of it. They still have a clinic open, but she's just trying to put it in the hands of mothers, and just give it and make it accessible.
Moms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like, go help people. Like, this is what people need. Like, I just love her. So I've learned so much from her. I'm so thankful that I got to be able to do the academy because it's life changing. And that's what I plan on doing. I already have a TikTok account and I have a new Instagram account for it. And I'm just trying to do some education. It's hard because so many hours go towards school. So it's not like a full on, it's not very busy, but I try to like educate people on certain remedies and different things, and just to pique their interest to like learn more about it, because it's not something that you could just willy-nilly just use, but the information's out there and I highly suggest that everybody goes and checks it out. So I got off all my medication and I would love to be that inspiration for people to want to try to do it for themselves too, because this is the way that we get rid of what.
Yeah, I love your story. I just so much love it because, yeah, where you are today and what you're doing, and you're just about done with your schooling and you're living a pretty natural life, getting off 12 medications. It's crazy. It's awesome, especially young. Being on that much medications young is crazy. Um,
That I want to say, I was literally bedbound for those
yeah, you
13,
were.
14 years
We didn't see
before
her
I found
for a long time.
homeopathy.
We have a small little
Yeah.
friend group from our high school times, and we see her for a long, long time.
We fell off the face of the earth. Even my neighbors, they were
She
like,
did fall off the
come
face of
out
the
and play. I'm like, I can't. Oh
yeah.
my God.
Um, and even when we did drag her out or get her out, like we went to, a couple of the rallies and stuff, it was like, we stayed outside, we'd be away from people.
Yeah.
Like we just we had to make sure that she wouldn't get sick at the events that we were at. But
It's
I
not an
hope
easy,
that,
but you can manage.
I hope this podcast really, brings your story out there and
Mhm.
share so much of what you know and all your knowledge that you've learned and how you've done this in our future podcasts.
Yes. And if anybody has any questions about Ehlers-Danlos or mast cell or POTS, put them in the comments and I would be happy to at least help put you in the right direction.
Definitely. All
So,
right.
Okay, guys, thanks for
Yep.
coming. See you next week.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye.